guys, anybody goes back and watches to the beginning of this, because I know it usually takes a couple minutes for anybody joins in. Continuing on my project with the equinox, I'm really having difficulty focusing on much. I have a splitting headache, but I'm doing what I can to just kind of pass the time. So I'm trying to do this. Hey, Thomas, good to see you. Now, I kind of got an idea just laying around, and I was just testing it out, and I realized I should be streaming if I'm going to be doing this. So I figured, okay, let's start. And what I did was the lights that we put on. The problem was they were causing all the, if you looked on the rest of the ship, you could see all these reflections and stuff from those lights because they were so bright. But if you turn the volume down or turn the level down on the light, then you would get this this situation where if you look at the ship right here, where the lights are only glowing in the center as opposed to the whole window. But you can see like this one looks different. And so that's kind of what I'm working on. And Slash.Dash is here. How you doing? Bird of Prey 5 is here. Bird, I hope you're doing well. And I hope that that little fundraiser was enough to get you the wheelchair you need. That was really exciting to see you go even beyond that goal. I know that you're at least a couple $100 beyond the goal at this point on that. And of course, props out to Orville Nation for pushing that so hard. It's like, yeah, it's crazy. I love it. Nice to see that some people were cared enough to do that. And let me actually bring up a browser with the chat in it so that I can actually see it a little bit better. You're at least a couple $100 beyond the goal. To mute that. And pop out chat. There we go. That makes it a little easier to read. Anyway. And Mountains of Elysium is here with his usual statement that is partially true, but not entirely true. Where he says, greetings, Anti-Checker and fellow nerds. Free Auntie. Auntie is free as a dog can be, although she is diligently sleeping right now, right where she usually is. Martok was a changeling, which indeed was true when he said Hail Kuroga, and Mama prays a saint. No argument there. Bradley's in the house, says hi. Bird says, I'm putting the fundraiser into Bitcoin. I'm going to buy an entire hospital. Bird, come on now. No, seriously, is that going to be enough for you to get the chair you need? That's what I want to know. And you have a room for me at the hospital? Great, we could be neighbors inside the hospital. That would just be awesome. Anyway, so Slash.Dash is waving. So here's what I was thinking. And if you look, and you'll notice that the first window in this group is actually lit solid. The rest of the windows have that glow effect that I don't like. And so what I did a little differently here was I put a shape in front of the window. Now, I will warn you, we're kind of, especially since this is such an old computer, this computer is the one that I built in 2013. So every now and then, Davinci Resolve just crashes out. And if it does, we reload it and continue on. But just to warn you, that could happen at any second when I'm doing this kind of stuff. Because this is very intensive stuff as far as what we're doing. And Bert said it's a bathroom, so the room you got for me is a bathroom? Okay. So you want me to live in a bathroom? Is that what you're saying? You're a weirdo, Bird. So I took a 3D shape, which is something you can add to the scene. In this case, just a plane, which is just a flat surface. And in the, this is the specifications for the 3D shape. Notice in the materials, I turned off lighting and shadows, which means that the shape's appearance is not affected by any lighting in the scene. So if I turn the lighting on, you'll see that the shape then goes back to a glow in the center because it's getting light from the same light source as everything else. But if I turn the lighting off, then the shape just shows its full colors on screen. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to basically keep the lights pretty much the way they are, but I'm going to add these shapes, and that's what we're going to do right now. And we'll probably do the rest of the windows, at least on this side of the ship. Thomas says, so Andrew, what do you think of the news Matthew broke last night that Deadpool is now DC? And aren't you excited about the characters in the new Trek show? Well, Matthew, of course, is Kurgan, and as such, gets almost all of his information wrong. So I pretty much dismiss almost anything he says. As far as the characters on not lower decks, but Prodigy, yeah, I'll bring it up here real quick so we can talk about that real quick. This is what you sent me. Let me get that out of the way so we can. All right, so we don't care about the ad. All right, and Bird says, yes, the money raised should cover what I have to pay for the chair. Most of it's covered by insurance. That's awesome, man. That is awesome. And 47 Yorktown is here. Good to see you. All right, so here's the actual characters, although like I said before, these don't look like Star Trek. Although I see they added Janeway in the middle there. These don't look like Star Trek characters except for Janeway. These look like, a freaking Fortnite team or something. So whatever. All right, so what does it say here? Okay, so here's the breakdown. Riley, however you say that, as a Rick-Talk, a Briker, and a Briker, and an unusually bright 8-year-old girl. Rock is a bit shy, but not when it comes to her love of animals. Oh boy, this is sounding great. Dow, a 17-year-old, an unknown species. He fancies himself a maverick who even in the toughest times holds strong to his unwavering hope. Yay. Zero, who is a Medusan, non-corporeal, genderless, energy-based life form. Oh, really? Genderless? You got to throw that in there on a kid's show? Look, I get that we want to be all progressive and inclusive, but this is a freaking kid's show. Do you really need to go into gender politics if this show is aimed at like 10-year-olds? I find that absolutely offensive that we're trying to indoctrinate children as to these various sexual ideas. I have a big problem with that. But anyway, and Medusans, by the way, are not genderless, at least not that we know of. But we just know that and they're not even non-corporeal from my understanding. At least I don't think they were. I know Spock mind melded with the one, but I don't, because it's contained in that whatever thing. But let's see, if we go back to the picture of the characters, I assume that the one that looks like a robot from freaking Portal is probably the Medusan, and that's why the glow. That's the Medusan. And Press says, at least they didn't make a sentient rock as a new character. Well, they did. That was the first character I read is named Rock. But whatever. All right, so the Medusan. Since others would go mad at the sight of their true self, Zero wears a containment suit made themselves to protect others. Yay. But, of course, I'm sure them and they is probably what they're going to, whatever. Jankum Pog, a 16-year-old Tellarite. Tellarites are known to relish argument, and Jankum is no different. Regardless of opinion, he will always play devil's advocate for the sake of hearing all sides. That's not a Tellarite. A Tellarite doesn't want to, play devil's advocate to hear all sides. Tellarites just love to fight. But whatever, writers don't care. Gwyn, a 17-year-old Vau Nakat, who was raised on her father's bleak mining planet and grew up dreaming to explore the stars. So she have to avoid the rape gangs. And finally, Murph, whose age and species are unknown, but who is an endearing, indestructible blob with curiously good timing and insatiable appetite for ship parts. So not a single human except for Janeway? Really? You really think this is what kids want? Well, at least to be able to teach you about genderlessness. I'm just, yeah. Now, Deej is in the house, my favorite Ewok furry bunny. Good to see you, Deej. So, those are the characters, the official breakdown. Of course, Janeway, we know. So, Janeway is like the only human on the show. And my understanding was that she's going to be, like the bad guy kind of thing. So, whatever. Did they say is Janeway a hologram? That doesn't make sense. But unless she, let's see. Join the previously announced Kate Mulgrew, who reprised her roles. Catherine Janeway will be blah 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 blah. Janeway will serve. Oh yeah. Yes, Janeway will service the Starship's built-in emergency training hologram. Really, they're basing the it's. Man, that just the emergency training. Why don't you get if you're gonna do a holographic character, freaking bring back Robert Picardo. Look, no offense to Kate Mulgrew, she's a fine actress, but Robert Picardo stole every scene he was in on Voyager. In fact, I watched last night because I couldn't sleep, and I actually watched. Oh gosh, now I'm forgetting. But the two-parter with the Equinox. I can't remember what it's called. It was just called Equinox, I think. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, I think it was. I think it was just called Equinox. So I watched that two-parter, and Robert Picardo is freaking awesome on that show. He really, I really every time he was the centerpiece of a scene, I was engaged. Catherine Janeway was just kind of there, and that was a big problem. That Janeway, while it just wasn't that interesting a character, and it's because writers have in the modern era, and I will count Voyager in the modern era because it's in the beginnings of the current era that we're in. Writers have a very tough time dealing with women, And Bird says, you think you could get Robert Picardo to do Prodigy? He still has a career. Does he? I don't know. He's done a couple of guest appearances on Orville, but doing a couple of guest spots isn't quite having a career. But my point here is that Janeway and the same problem, or not the same problem, but a similar problem we had with Michael Burnham, and we just have with female characters in general, is that writers are afraid to give female characters real character flaws. And but without real character flaws, a character is not interesting. I don't want to see someone who's perfect. And with Janeway, her only real flaw is that sometimes she was obstinate and didn't listen to Cote, but she always turned out to be right, so it didn't really matter. And so, yeah. Anyway, and again, it's nothing on Kate Mulgrew. It's just the way that Janeway was written. That's one of the, like Voyager was actually an interesting premise, although they didn't do much with the Maquis Starfleet dichotomy, which they should have. There should have been like multiple insurrections. There should have been just never ever could you have a Maquis and a Federation officer in the same room without something bad happening. It should have been horrible as far as that's concerned. But no, after a couple of weeks, they were all holding hands and singing Kumbaya. But they also, the biggest problem with Voyager is that the most boring and worst character on the show was the captain of the ship. That's a big problem. Is that if your main character is just not interesting, you have a major problem. Robert Picardo's on Space Command. I forgot about that. So that could be too. Yeah, he may be too busy, but they may not have even asked him. But Robert Picardo would have been a lot more fun. I mean, because could you imagine with his condescending way of talking, dealing with kids on this ship? That would be hilarious. Although the whole idea of a bunch of kids taking a starship and going on adventures is just really stupid. And this is where writers, and this is a problem that writers have had for a very, very long time. But I do think that it's interesting that there was an exception that kind of proves the rule. And Harry throws in a couple of bucks to go to my doctors. Thank you so much, Harry. And says, no one is always right, and 12 to like, youngster. Thank you so much, Harry. Well, in the real world, you're right. Nobody is always right. But in writing, what the writers are afraid to make female characters wrong. And because if they do, then they're going to offend people. But if they make them perfect in every way, they're just boring. You know? Anyway, so yeah, there's that. I think that the show is probably going to suck. Just if I were to hazard a guess, but we shall see. So what I'm doing here, the shape piece that I added to that window, I'm going to create another one, and then we'll just kind of drag it. Oh, is that the light? That's the light. We want the shape, not the light. Come on. I can do it. I know I'm not that stupid. Is this it? There we go. And bring it out just a bit. It's really hard to maneuver it in there, but you can see, so now we have two lights that are actually working. And Carlos says, a bunch of Wesley Crushers, a bunch of Wesleys. Yeah, that's... And Preston says, Rob Picardo dealing with kids, he'd be immediately labeled. No, I just think about Robert Picardo's ability, his presence, and the fact that, I'm a doctor, not a babysitter. I could just absolutely see that. I would love it. And Aberjam, I don't think that Rob Picardo would get more work if he got a boob job. I honestly, I just don't think that that's factual. But I do really like Robert Picardo. I would love to see him do more Trek. And if he were, if you're going to bring in an emergency hologram of any kind, why the heck wouldn't you have it be Robert Picardo? I mean, honestly, what is wrong with you people? If you're not going to bring in one of the most interesting characters in all of Trek. And so, come on, do I have the right? Man, this is tricky here. There we go. Trying to get the angle on it right, and come on. Just a little. Want it to be as close to right on the surface as we can. And bring it out just a smidge. Because when we do close-up shots of the ship, we don't want the windows to look like they're hovering off the ship. You can see these two windows look pretty good, but this one's sticking out a bit. And that's going to bug me. All right, try to zoom in a bit to get a little more precise control. There we go. We're getting close now. Let's do the rotation thing. All right. Well, that'll do. Not perfect, but it'll do. And honestly, I'll tell you, so And yes, I know, John. I want to replace a female with a male character. Well, I mean, you can still keep the kids a mix of boys and girls in your genderless Medusan. But I think that I think Robert Picardo would just be more fun. They could bring a Robert Picardo, but he's a man. Easier to bring one of the more in the most the other most interesting character, 7 of 9. Better yet, they can make her gay. Well, they already did that, Dreamers out there, so we don't need that. And honestly, I think 7 of 9 is probably the most overrated character on Voyager. She had a interesting idea for an arc, but honestly, she was just there to be a pretty face and a pretty body. That's the only reason she was on the show. And quite frankly, I don't think she brought a lot other than that. Scorpion was a great two-parter. That was probably Voyager's high point. But 7 of 9 outside of Scorpion, meh. I could take her or leave her. All right, so let's duplicate this. Copy and paste. So just so you guys know, so what I ultimately, I've been working on this particular Starship. I'm going to be building a new ship in Blender. That'll probably be some of my live streams in the coming weeks. And the reason I'm doing that is twofold. One, once we start actually putting together little fan productions of like starships versus, Star Destroyers, if they're all custom built ships and they're not the same ships as we saw in Star Trek, but we just use their ships as a basis for calculating stuff, then can't sue me. So sorry, Paramount or whoever. It's not, I won't call it Star Trek. I won't call it the Federation. But we all know what it is, Isn't it sexist to have a woman as a mother figure for the children? The Doctor would be so much funnier. Well, it's not, it's just that Janeway is just a boring character, You could have B'Elanna Torres in there. You could have 7 of 9 in there. You could have, almost any other character from the show as that, emergency training hologram, and I think that it would work better. I hope Ensign Kim makes a cameo. He's the Doctor Strange of Trek. The one thing that would be funny about an Ensign Kim cameo is that he would still be Ensign Kim. That would be like the reason to watch it. All right, so come on. Well, we'll just do this one. All right, so slide this one over here. And working on our windows here. Helps if I pick the right axis. Can't say anything these days. All right, there we go. No, I think they should keep, and that's what I honestly, they should do this on Lower Decks. They really should, is to have Ensign Kim make a cameo as Ensign Kim. So that even though it's, 10 years after Voyager gets home or whatever they say the timeline is for Lower Decks, he's still frickin' Ensign Kim. And in fact, put him on the Titan with Riker. I think it would be hilarious. Draper's out there says, heck, even Neelix would make a better training hologram than Jane. Yeah, the problem with Neelix is, assuming there was a good copy of his personality, he would enjoy it. I think it would be most fun if we bring in a character that would absolutely hate working with children. And so I think the Doctor would be a good pick. I think Taurus would be a good pick. Tuvok, I could see doing it. But Neelix, while Neelix would be better than Janeway, I think he would be probably the weakest of the crew. You call it Star Trek anti-Trek, and how could anyone confuse that term with Star Trek? Actually, I already have the name that I'm going to be going by is Space Fleet Battles, and so that way, so kind of a play on Starfleet battles. Once we get some of these ships built and able to render properly, that's my goal is space fleet battles. We take a ship from X fleet and a ship from Y fleet, throw them together, and they will be based on every great franchise out there. That's kind of what I want to do if I can actually get the models built, and that's going to depend a lot on if my brain will start working again. The EMH Mark III would have been great. Was it the Mark III on the Prometheus? He gets reprogrammed to be a teacher, like the Mark I was reprogrammed to be a Kurogan miners. It's funny you should say that, because, a lot of people forget that the EMH Mark I was reprogrammed to be Kurogan miners. But you could do that, but I think using the Mark I would be more fun. Brian McFarland says, "Hey, Checker, are there any sci-fi shows that is head and shoulders above all else in ship lighting, coloring, new BSG, Star Trek Discovery, The Expanse, Mandalorian, etc.?" Man, that's a tough one. Just as far as because if you're asking specifically about the lighting and rendering of the ships, as far as how they look on screen, it's really hard to argue with Mandalorian. I mean, because those ships look like you're in a feature film. They're beautiful ships. I love the Mandalorian ship. I was really sad that it was destroyed, because it's an ugly ship, but you could tell what every piece... one thing I liked about it, and this is something I like about some of the classic Starfleet ships, is that everything on the ship makes sense. It's for what it does and how it works. The size of the ship makes sense, all that. But anyway, I think that if you're going to look at from a rendering perspective, as far as the effort put into the actual lighting and rendering of the ships, I would give it to the Mandalorian currently. Probably a close second, I would go with the Expanse. Those ships are beautiful. But some of the visuals on the Expanse ships are a little cheesy, a little cheap. Although I understand it's very difficult to do. And that, when you think about the way that the flames fire up in the back of the ship, it's more technically realistic, but I don't think it looks as good the way that they do it. And let's see. Mountains of Elysium says, Ensign Kim is Janeway's secretary. She refused to let him out from under control. I could see that. Brandon says, the captains are big stars for the show. Kirk is too expensive. Picard is busy. Cisco is too crazy. Archer, maybe. Well, Archer, died. We don't know, but we would assume Archer died before holograms even became a thing. Except then in Discovery, we find out holograms been around forever, but whatever. Space Above and Beyond was a great story. CGI a bit dated. Now, I never watched Space Above and Beyond. It was nice to use practical effects. Man, it was a good mix. And that's another thing, Orville does very well, is to use physical models for your ships, but then to enhance them digitally. And honestly, one of the first shows to do that was Star Trek The Next Generation. While the Enterprise didn't have true CG graphics or anything, they did do multiple passes of the ship on film, and then brought them together digitally so that the ship looked better. And that's how they got the windows and stuff like that, to have that nice glow. Because what you would do is film the ship going by once, just regular with full lighting on it, and then you turn off all the lights except for the window lights that are built into the ship, and you do the exact same pass of the ship with that. Then you superimpose the two together to make the windows really pop in the final cut. And that's why the windows look so much better in TNG that they did in TOS. In TOS, they didn't have the technology to do that. Robert says, I like the ships in the first two Alien movie. Both were pretty realistic. They felt like real ships. And that's an important thing. That's something that unfortunately, a lot of modern stuff, like modern Star Trek and stuff like that, they don't feel like ships. They just feel like fancy sets. But they don't feel like ships. When you look at Voyager, you felt like you were on a ship. When you look at the Mandalorian ships, it feel like you're on a ship. When you're on the Orville, it feels like you're on a ship. But when you're on Discovery, it just feels like you're on a set. It doesn't feel like a ship. Mandalorian ships look as good as they do because they also use motion control miniatures. Yeah, I think that's the best way to do it is doing a physical model combined with a digital pass to enhance the visuals on it. That's, in my opinion, the way to do it. It's expensive, but it looks great. The Expanse is good, but not the greatest thing ever. Agreed. Hey, check it, sir. One TNG Voyager character that should never ever be added to Star Trek Picard. Depends on what you plan on doing with them. Honestly, I don't. The funny thing about it is that we got when we got 7 of 9, a lot of people were excited, but 7 of 9 really ended up sucking, and they butchered her character. So my whole thing with Picard is that I just want them to make a good story. If the Q story ends up being good, awesome. That's what I'm hoping for. But as far as bringing in more legacy characters, I don't care. What I care about is write a good story. Focus on that. Once you have a good story, then we can talk about bringing in legacy characters. But if you're going to bring in legacy characters, for the love of all that is holy and good, please make the legacy characters true to their characters. The reason that people like myself were upset about 7 of 9's lesbianism is not that we hate lesbians. It's that 7 of 9 was not a lesbian. That's the problem. The problem has nothing to do with the sexual preference itself. It has to do with the fact that we've already established this character's sexuality, and why do we need to change it? That was completely pointless. If you wanted 7 to fall in love at the end of the series for whatever reason, well, then you should do it with a man because she is heterosexual. But if you want to make Rafi a lesbian, that's fine. That doesn't. I don't care. But 7, it made no sense whatsoever. Sorry, that's just my take on it. I really, really had a problem with that. And again, it's not. It has nothing to do with the sexual preference itself, as much as the fact that they're butchering a character. That, and I just don't care. I don't want that. What's cool, Mando? John Knoll, ILM built machine their motion control rig, control software from scratch. Well, ILM, if you want good visual effects, you can't beat ILM. Weta Digital tries, but you can't beat ILM. Remember, Q will make Picard into a younger, faster, and better human, and female. I don't know what Q is going to do, but honestly, I think having Q on the show, I think is going to probably not be as great as some people seem to think it will be. But we'll find out when it comes out. I hope I'm wrong, but I'm just saying I'm not particularly excited about Q. Sonia Gomez is who Cinnamon wants. Robert says, Andrew would be very interested in how the Trek universe would deal with something like the xenomorphs and aliens. Predator species also be interesting. That kind of a crossover would be interesting because, like, the Predators, not as much, because honestly, when we look at their tech and everything, I get the feeling that the Predators would not be a big threat to the Federation. Just saying, I don't think that the Predators have what it takes to to really do any damage from what we've seen. However, it could be an interesting thing if someone got stranded on a predator hunting planet. That's the only way you could really make the Predators work. But the xenomorphs, you could have an episode, and the problem is we don't have any good, and maybe Strange New Worlds will do it, but we don't have any good, Starship-based shows right now. We have Discovery, it's the closest thing we have, but that's not good. But the xenomorphs, imagine for a minute that the xenomorphs are on, say, there's the main ship of the show gets a distress call from a colony or something, and then we find out that the xenomorphs have basically devastated that colony, but then the crew finds an egg. They beam it aboard for study. It gets one of the people in their medical department, and then and hijinks ensue as they try to get it under control. I mean, you could have a huge amount of the crew die, and that could be pretty intense. And in fact, that would be a good way to establish, like, if you're going to do a new show or something, that'd be a great way to have the captain kind of, fail, and as he starts out, and that would be a great way to establish some character there. Voyager did Predator with the Herodin, but they sucked. Brian says, what makes ILM better? Do they have patented software, better staff? They're just, honestly, well, keep in mind, ILM has collectively more experience than any other group on the planet when it comes to that stuff. ILM invented motion control technology that everybody else just uses. They know it. They when they don't know it, they invent it, and they do, and it's just, yeah, you can't beat them. It's I'm trying to remember which one, which access I need. Is it this one? There we go. As we try to get this lined up here, a little bit bigger. All right, that'll work. All right. And Andre's here from Bosnia. Good to see you. Love the patience and minuscule details you apply to this. Well, that's what you got to do if you want it to look good. And I just realized I screwed up one of the lights, but I'll fix that in a minute. Is you want the ship, when you render it, you don't want people to catch a glimpse of something you did wrong. You just want to say, oh, that's a nice looking ship. And the funny thing is, all this work is for nothing, really, in that you don't want anybody to notice the lights in the windows. But if the lights in the windows suck, people will notice. And so that's a problem. So John says, most of the crew die in that light. I hope they do that story on Discovery. They won't. You know that. Come on now. All right. So we want this. Oops. Wait, actually, we need to duplicate it first. So copy and paste. We'll put it right here. And now we can bring it. Oops. Man, I'm an idiot. All right. This one. Where are you hiding? Let's do this. Where did I put it? Oh. We want this one. Man, it's getting to where you can't see anything. Come on. Really? You're not going to let me click on that? All right, fine, you jerk. Let me zoom out. And zoom in on this. Put that on there. All right. Now, try to remember which one is it. That's that one. There we go. All right, bring that over here. And let's see. Bounds of Elysium says, if the crew can survive Neelix's cooking, then they can survive a xenomorph infestation. Couldn't help myself. The funny thing about that, and like, I never noticed it before, but one interesting fact about the Equinox two-parter is that that's probably the only time that there was a positive review of Neelix's cooking, when the crew of the Equinox were relishing in having actual food, as opposed to emergency rations is what they've been eating for months and months and months. And so I thought that was interesting that they did that. That basically they had the crew really, really enjoying some of Neelix's cooking. So I never noticed that before. So just one of those things. Um, and Brian says, "Hey, check. Will we see the USS Tracker 3D model printed or visualized in the near future?" I don't know. Honestly, the problem is that I'm physically. I mean, like the 3D printer that I want to use is literally on the other side of this wall in the garage. Um, but I can't physically operate the printer in my current condition. And so, I mean, I can barely do what I'm doing right now. I feel like, and I don't know if you can tell, and that's part of the reason that I got this chair that I'm sitting in right now. And this is one of those lift chairs. Like, in order to get out of the chair, I'm hitting the button right now. The chair literally has to lift me up, which is, you can see the chair is rising a bit, in order for me to get in and out of the chair. Physically, it's kind of weird, and I don't know. I mean, they're still trying to figure it out as far as the actual diagnosis. But physically, I can barely do anything, and it's like the slightest physical action is like lifting the moving my hand to get to the mouse feels like I'm lifting a 50-pound weight. You know, everything is difficult, and I feel like even right now I'm struggling just to sit up as opposed to lie back like this is easier, but still, even that is the problem there is that everything, like any kind of physical contact, kind of hurts after a little while. So even sitting in this chair, which is the most comfortable chair I've ever owned, hurts. The chair that I want is way too expensive. That's this one is the best I could get, but the chair that I want is about $2,000. That ain't happening. But this one will do. Anyway, I'm sorry about that, Brian, but I do want to, but I got to get to a point where I can physically do it, or get medication, which I'm hoping that eventually the doctors can figure out what exactly it is, give me on some kind of medication so that I can deal with the pain and have a little more strength. The or eventually, honestly, as far as the pain part of it, if frickin' make weed legal in Tennessee, and at least I'll be able to deal with the pain. But as far as the weakness part, though, that's not going to help, and I don't know what I can do there. Trying to be more careful about my eating, maybe lose a little bit of weight, see if that helps. I've lost about 8 pounds so far, but it's still not like I don't have more strength, I don't have more energy. Although it is slightly easier to get up. I mean, that's about it. Losing weight will not be a bad thing, but yeah. And press says rise, anti-checker, rise. And let's see. Cinnabon says, I heard a rumor Kathleen Kennedy is going to buy a track. Cinnabon, I've been trying to do a whole stream without going off on the Fandom Menace. So don't Average Ev always gets mad at me for going off on the Fandom Menace too much. So stop. Oh, man. And Thomas says Kathleen Kennedy's in jail. And Cinnamon says the Federation is female, of course. Oh, Lordy. Lordy. All right, so let's move on before I go crazy thinking about what Cinnabon was saying. So we have a couple of options, and I was when I was watching Equinox last night, the ship itself, most of the windows were dark, but I think that was a conscious choice because they were showing because of every interior. Because every single time we saw the interior of the Equinox, it was very darkly lit, and of course there was conduits and crap everywhere because the ship was in rough shape. And by the way, one thing that kind of makes me mad about Voyager, when I'm talking about this, is that Voyager was in pretty rough shape by the end of the two-parter. I mean, there were conduits hanging everywhere, and so because Voyager was under constant attack during this two-parter, and until they made peace with the aliens, which I thought was cool. But then, of course, I don't remember, I don't know what the next episode was. I'd have to take a look. But I bet you, what did they say? Beans to Navy credits or whatever. Credits to Navy beans. That's what it was. I bet credits to Navy beans that at the beginning of the next episode, everything on Voyager is just fine. And that was a big problem with the show. You never felt like Voyager was actually damaged. So, Average M says, I'm watching from the stalls. That sounds horrible. Thomas says, Federation is not binary. Now, Brandon is getting in on it. Says, Doomcock said Kathleen Kennedy caused World War II and made the dinosaurs extinct. Stop it. Geeks enjoy it. LD, will you just pick a freaking name and go with it? What's wrong with LDG Pixels? That's you. You keep changing. Stop it. Just stop it. Pick a name. Anyway, Josh, by the way, LD, you missed, I don't know if you saw any of the virtual pub. You should go back and rewatch the virtual pub because we figured out that Mephisto is in Loki and ultimately caused WandaVision. So there you go. Josh says, you're damned if you do or don't go off on the fandom menace. I know. And don't call him the fandom menace. Josh, I got to be fair. Even though I've been disagreeing with them a lot lately, I'm not going to stoop to their level and just call them a derogatory name. They're the fandom menace, not the fandom menace. Just like I get mad at them, and I told you, I said this on a live stream to Doomcock's face, that I think it is wrong, immoral, and disrespectful to only call J.J. Abrams Jar Jar, to only call Rian Johnson Ruin Johnson, to use these derogatory names that they use for these people is wrong and immoral, and it would be just as wrong and immoral for me to do it to them. So I'm not going to do that. And LD has like 5 accounts. I don't care how many accounts. He needs to. Honestly, LD, I look, far be it from me to try and give you advice to be a successful YouTuber because I suck at it. But we know you. But honestly, it's hard for me to keep track of all these accounts. Like when me and Mrs. Anti-Checker start our account, we haven't come up with a name for it yet. But we're not going to do 75 different accounts. That account will just be me and Mrs. Anti-Checkers going through life kind of thing. We're talking about recording when we're walking the dog and just talking about stuff. Recording when we're going to the doctors and talking about, what life, is thrown at us. And I think that'll be fun. It'll be, but right now, we don't have a name for that channel. It's not going to be related to this channel. Like it's not going to be, Life in Turdistan or something like that. As funny as that would be, we want this to be for a general audience, not just for the nerds. So don't know what we're going to do there. Robert says the Equinox is originally going to be the ship they were going to use for the advanced ship of the DS9, aka the Defiant. If that happened, would you like the Defiant then? Absolutely. I think that the Equinox is one of the best looking ships of Generation 2 Star Trek. And that is not an exaggeration. It is. I love this ship. And that's part of the reason that I chose this ship to do this little project on. And I need to rename all of these because it's going to drive me crazy. So, starboard window. I know I'm giving them all the same name, which you should never do. But I don't care. I'm going to be lazy. See, and this I can't even type very well. I too would appreciate maybe three. Let's see. Make sure, yeah. I too would appreciate maybe 3 episodes of the whole series run that dealt with Voyager rebuilding the ship or dealing with consequences of taking. Yeah, absolutely. And you know, this is something that Ronald D. Moore. This is part of the reason Ronald D. Moore quit Voyager. A lot of people don't realize he was. Ronald D. Moore was going to be an executive producer on Voyager, and then after a few episodes, when he realized what they were doing, he quit. And then he made Battlestar Galactica, which was his take on this is what Voyager should have been. And I agree. If you look at Battlestar Galactica, take away the fleet, and then you replace President Roslin with Chakotay, you replace Commander Adama with Janeway. You know, they never, ever saw eye to eye. And the civilian and military were always at odds. And the Galactica, by the end of the show, was a busted, rundown piece of crap ship. At the beginning of the show, it looked nice. Even though it was an older model ship, it looked really nice. By the end of the show, that ship was falling apart. And every time it took a hit, the damage stuck. It didn't just magically go away in the next episode. So yeah, Galactica is a textbook example of how to do that. Unfortunately, with Voyager, they use the magic reset button so many times it's laughable. Because the whole premise of the show is that Voyager is stranded on the other side of the galaxy with no star bases, or you know, but somehow they just. I mean, think about Scorpion. As good as of an episode Scorpion was, they modified the entire exterior of the ship, and then the next episode, oh, yep, all the Borg stuff is just gone. Where did it go? You know, you should, the ship, if you're going to do all those modifications, the exterior of the ship, by the way, those modifications were so they could deal with, a combat situation. Why the heck would you take those modifications off the ship after that? I mean, oh yeah, we improved all the systems. Well, take it down. We don't want those nasty Borg pieces on the outside of the ship. That makes no effing sense. But hey, whatever. Thomas says, call it the Beauty and the Beast channel. We actually, Beauty and the Old Beast channel. We actually did consider that as a name, as Beauty and the Beast. And so, but we don't have a firm name for the channel. But that's something we're working on. This is going to be Mrs. Antrecker's baby. But I'm, obviously I'll be in it, but we're going to be talking about, real issues, not like just nerdy stuff. Geez, get off your phone in a theater then, dude. Huh? Oh, Average Evan says that in the theater, the stalls are the main block of the seating floor level. Okay. You're at a theater? Wait, there are survivors in Turkestan? And Hail Kuroga. Are you kidding? Look at the freaking Turkestan camera. Turkestan is a beautiful place. Kuroga is a sludge pit. They had an episode where they had to land Voyager and rebuild the nacelles, but that was the most they did. Yeah, but you know what? How and like how do they do all these magic repairs? That doesn't make any sense. The Borg stuff was on Voyager for 1 episode past Scorpion. Are you sure? I don't remember. I mean, I'd have to, but even so, they should have never left. Why, if you have all these Borg enhancements to Voyager's systems, thanks to 7 of 9, why would you ever get rid of that? Especially when you might have to fight the Borg again. They were causing problems to the system, so most of the Borg stuff had to, that's just called lazy writing. That's all that was, Carlos. You know what? Make it so that they don't cause problems with the systems. But Anti-Trigger, couldn't the time frame between Voyager episodes be varied like a day, 6 months, a year? Oh, sure. That's an easy. But you know what? The problem is that they don't write that into it. They should. They absolutely should have. Where episode starts out where Janeway can say, "Man, it's been 6 months since we've made contact with anybody. It's kind of weird," and so you can establish long periods of time between episodes. But the simple fact is, it's really lazy writing to just have the ship's appearance at the end be exactly the same as it was when the ship was stranded without a starbase. The only way the Voyager should have been able to look like it did at the end of Voyager is if every couple of months in between they had a starbase to refit. We had trains in Kuroga. Trains that crash. Kroger literally has orphans digging in mines. That is very true. And Carlos says 1,701% agreed. Thomas says, yes, I traded the episode, The Gift, they were removing the Borg upgrades. Okay, well, that's great, but they shouldn't have. I'm not actually in a theater, an expression like lurking in the wings. Well, Aberjam, you're weird in English, so we don't get those weird English type expressions. Sorry. Oh, and this one we didn't rename yet. So let's rename. And starboard window. All right. Oh, man. And too many of these things. All right. But it's still, yeah, why is it not sticking? Probably because they're exactly the same name. I can't have the exact same name. Dang it. Making it tough on me. All right. So we'll rename these three. So we'll go starboard window 1. Starboard window 2. Starboard window 3. All right, there. Now we got them all renamed for now. All right, and let's see. Did people complain about Voyager's problems in the 90s when I was coming out, or is this a new thing? No, actually, a lot of people like myself didn't like that about the show when it was on. And honestly, that's the reason that Voyager is my least favorite, the one that I don't go back to watch very often. I only did last night because I've been working on this project, and I kind of wanted to see the Equinox in action. But if Voyager uses Borg upgrades, don't they become the Borg? No. Perhaps the reason the Cylons weren't successful in their plan and the eradication of the humanity is because they were developed and secretly built in Kuroga. Well, the Cylons didn't crash nearly as much as Kurogans. Aberjam says, my apologies. Next time, remember to dumb it down for the Yanks in the audience. Wow. Way to alienate the group, jerk. Brandon just says, be less British. That's what you need. Yes. Rome says, back in the day, either no one was watching Voyager, or they were only watching 7 and 9. Honestly, that's not too far from the truth. People would look at 7 of 9 because she was pretty, and hey, if the episode was about the Doctor, it might be good, or anything other than Janeway. That's the problem. Is the Janeway centric episodes are the worst. And the technobabble on Voyager was just a joke. I guess Voyager can have industrial replicators, transporters, shuttles, so I guess they can repair the ship. But where's that power come from? They said power was an issue. Well, that's the problem. They did it first, but then they just kind of forgot. I mean, that's the problem, is that in the beginning, like, they were like, oh, we need to replenish our, oops. Oh, crap. Didn't mean to do that. Okay. We need to copy and paste. See, did that do it? Yeah, okay. And where the heck? Dang it. All right, it's right here. All right. Yeah, that's our new one. I can't keep track of this stuff. But the problem with all that dreamers out there is that, yeah, Voyager was not. I mean, Voyager, you could argue, was a tactically sound ship, but it was not an industrial repair vessel, and so they should not have been able to repair everything. Carlos says, we are the Borg. Resistance is possible, but please don't. And Tom says, I know why you didn't pick an Akira class because it's first. Actually, I almost did an Akira class, but I like this ship a little better. That's why I went with this ship. Not because of a disdain for the Akira, but this is the Nova class. If somebody was going to give me a Starship in real life, this is the ship I would probably want. And let's see, let's zoom out. There we go. So it gets a little more complicated as we're curving around the hull here. So we need to line everything up and then go in and rotate it just right, which is the tricky part. Didn't mean to do that. All right. There we go. Rotate the Y-axis. That looks good, but we need to scale it back a bit. A little more, a little more, a little more. There we go. One more window. Why are you messing with the windows? They're such a pain. Wow. That was really bad. I like 7 of 9, but for me, minus the brow ridges, Bolano is for me the most beautiful one on Voyager, and certainly in the running for the most beautiful in all Trek. I disagree. I think that 7 of 9 was better looking, but I think that the problem is that they shouldn't have brought in a character just for eye candy. And Merce says that I skipped you, huh? I'm not sure what you mean, Mercer. Like that you skipped me. I'm not sure what you mean there, unless you were talking to someone else. Don't forget to put @AntiTrekker in the comment if you're addressing it to me, because there's a lot going on in the chat, and I would feel bad if I missed something important. So yeah, do that, or throw all your money at me. That would be nice. Sorry, I sound like other people. And Dreamers Out There says, I'd want a Defiant class. I'd fly circles around your Nova class. Oh, yeah, but the Nova class is a better looking ship. Sorry. And, it was the original design. You could tell. It's funny because even though they say, oh, it's just a little research vessel and doesn't have any real firepower, look at this thing. It's got, these 2 phaser strips that can hit almost any direction, and 2 front-firing photon torpedo launchers, and I think there's a rear-firing photon torpedo launcher. This thing is actually armed to the teeth for a little ship. And it wouldn't take much to modify it to put the phaser pulse cannons on there as well. Though in Star Trek 6, we found out Starship still had actual kitchens and food. Well, that was 23rd century tech, and I think that they should. Honestly, I think that the biggest problem with second generation Trek is that they advanced the technology a little too much. Because we should not have had... Replicators are a neat idea and a logical extension of transporter technology, but replicators ruin certain elements of a ship. Like, now you don't need... What do you need a chef for? The answer, you don't. Food supply will never be an issue, right? Because you have an unlimited supply thanks to replicator technology. And so it's just, it sucks out some, and in fact, then you have to argue, why is it, if anything on the ship breaks, you have to come up with some kind of bogus excuse as to why you can't replicate a replacement for whatever it is that broke. And let's see, this window is a little bit off, so trying to get it fixed. Oops. Bring it back just a hair. Come on. Oh, in the words of Red Leader, almost there. Okay, looks like we're pretty good so far. Some YouTubers only read Super Chats. That's true, Rome Hater. That would never be me. Even if I had a big old channel and people were throwing a lot of Super Chats, I couldn't do that because I think that's wrong. I think I have a moral issue with people that only read Super Chats. And there are channels, I mean, honestly, I'm not going to pick on anyone. I'm not going to name anybody, but people we know where they even ignore, like, I watched this guy and on a live stream. So someone I know personally, and it's not lore, just so you know, but someone I know personally, and I consider for a long time friend. But but a person threw in like $100 super chat, right? Which if I get $100 super chat, I'm like, holy crap, thank you so much. But didn't even acknowledge it until like 15 minutes later, saw the super chat and just said, oh, thanks, and read the super chat. I was like, what? If somebody drops 100 on you, you stop the presses because that's a huge gift. I don't care if that person's rich or not. That's big. And so you don't ignore it. Speaking of which, Mercer throws in a couple of bucks. Thank you so much, Mercer. And says, Crazy Ivan, Porter Starboard, love Red October. Red October, I know that people like Darren Wagner, because he was a submariner, hates that movie. But at the same time, I think that movie is a great way to show how ship combat should be dealt with in space. That's why I like Star Trek 2 so much. But Red October is a fun movie. Love that movie. Sorry, Darren, if you're out there. Cinnamon only reads super chats over $10. Wow, Cinnamon. So I didn't realize you were that level of a jerk. I did not know that. So thank you for sharing that. All right, so we got another double window coming up here. And then I think that's the last window on this deck. Are you talking about that jerk Matthew? No. And Cinnamon says, if you're going to donate, you better mean it. The hunt for red Karoga. Janeway only drinks liquid toffee mixed with orphan's blood. I do get the distinct feeling that Janeway is a Karogan. I know it's just my gut speaking there, but I think so. I think Janeway is in fact a Karogan. All right, so we're gonna duplicate this window. We'll put it right here, connect it up so we can see it, and let's move it over here. And we need to zoom in on it. Nobody would donate that much to Matthew. You know what? Honestly, I'll tell you. I love Matthew. He's a great guy. I know that he's, he fortunately, he's not like in dire straits like me or Bird of Prey or Rambling Canuck or Positive Candor. He's not dealing with a big health issue or anything. But if Matthew were in serious trouble, I would donate everything I possibly could, because he's a good guy. And so, all kidding aside, I absolutely would if he were in trouble. Just like I donated to Bird's wheelchair fund anonymously because I couldn't give much, and I was embarrassed by what I could actually give. But and that's just because I'm dealing with my own stuff right now. Wish it wasn't I wish that wasn't the case, but it is. And if I were in a better position to help, I absolutely would. But I'm glad that Bird made enough to get his chair. That's the important thing there. Oops. What the heck did I just do? Why can't I see anything now? What is going on? Oh, I put the starboard window as the thing there, right? So let's switch it to the merge. Come on, merge. Oh, that's the wrong one. We'll do this one. There. Actually, that's we should do this one. Come on. This interface, it gets a little clunky sometimes when you have too many items in here like we do right now. Best quote from Red October, Abjam says, is give me a ping, one ping only, please. I did like that, even though, that's one of the things that makes people like Darren Wagner mad, because that's not how sonar works. And Darren was a sonar man. But I did like it. And I want Star Trek captains that's like Mancuso from the Dallas. And was that his name? The captain of the Dallas? I did like him. Andrew, what's your favorite episode of Trek which explored the afterlife? None. I don't really, I don't think they ever did a good job with that. And despite how much we mess with him, Matthew's a good guy. Absolutely, John. Did Bird get his wheelchair? Not yet, but he did get enough money. So I don't know. He was on this stream a little while ago. He said that he did get enough to pay for the wheelchair in that GoFundMe. So that's awesome to hear. And I'll be completely honest with you. I've kind of purposely avoided it, but I'm seriously considering doing a GoFundMe for all the hospital bills and stuff that I've had. But I don't, I just hate to do it, and so, because it would end up being a lot, and I don't know. I just don't feel like I could do that. Now, I know Bird didn't actually set up that GoFundMe. My understanding is this PJ, better known as Orville Nation, that actually set it up. And so that makes it even better to me that Bird didn't even ask for it. And so I love that. And so absolutely props to PJ for setting that up. All right, just like right on the edge. All right, so let's back this down just a bit. Back this down just a bit. Trying to like bring it in so that it's only covering the window. And then let's move it up a little bit. There we go. That looks better. Let's see. Captain Galloway. That's okay. That's what, it seemed like weird the way that you wrote that, but that's fine. Typos are acceptable. If Voyager had a real first officer and a real chief medical officer, Janeway should have been removed from command in the year of hell for making that deal with the Borg. Well, she did have a real first officer and chief medical officer, but they died in the first episode. Dream says, I'm not saying he can't believe what he does, but how does Darren circumnavigate the globe in a sub and then come out the other end to think the Earth is flat? Well, I'll tell you, and I'm not an expert on flat Earth theory. If Darren were here, I'd let him explain it. But my understanding is that if you look at their version of the map, now, their version of the flat Earth, the North Pole is at the center of the disk, and what we call Antarctica is actually the outer rim. And so Antarctica is actually much, much longer than than the conventional globe model, right? It's Antarctica is huge. Now, there are some problems with this, lots of problems with it, but it makes it so like if you're on a submarine, you can make a straight line to any point on Earth because it's a disk that covers everything. So you can, it's. I still, I have problems with the whole flat Earth thing. If you've seen my video on it on the other channel, I think that it's bad for Christianity. I think that it's just. Not a big fan, but he has his reasons. I mean, if you understand the full theory, they have an explanation for most things. One thing that they can't explain, and Darren will even admit this, one thing they can't explain is summers in Antarctica. Because on both the North Pole and the South Pole, an interesting phenomenon, because of the axis of the Earth, the rotation, blah, 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 there's several months of the year in the northernmost parts, like even parts of Alaska where my sister lives, they get this for about 6 weeks. During peak summer, the sun never goes down. It goes down to the horizon, then goes right back up because the tilt of the axis and everything is so steep that the sun never gets quite below the horizon. And in the winter, it's the opposite. In the winter, there's several weeks where the sun never comes up. You see on the horizon, lights start to, like there's about to be a sunrise, and then it just gets dark again. Now, in Antarctica, the same thing happens, right? It's the exact same phenomenon during peak summer in Antarctica, which is winter in the northern hemisphere, but peak summer in Antarctica, sun never sets, and in peak winter, the sun never rises. The flat Earth model, that completely breaks it, particularly the part where the sun never sets, because their idea is that the sun is this tiny little ball that's just a couple of 100 miles up. And so they can explain away summers in the North Pole in that the ball is closer to the center of the disk, but there's no way to explain it for Antarctica. But yeah. And I'm pretty sure Antarctica has audio evidence of that. To make Bird is into she-males. Yes, I do have audio evidence of that. Well, hopefully, once I get the computer repaired, I don't know if I still have it or not, but yes, I did have audio evidence of that. Let's see. Lisa Baines, an actress, Gone Girl, is in season 3 of Orville, passed away from a hit and run. Wow. I wouldn't say passed away. I would say was killed. But wow, that sucks. Or Losa Baines. Okay. Darren's a flat earther. Everything makes sense about him now. I love Darren. And the funny thing about Darren, he's a really smart guy. I mean, I will tell you, I'll call Darren a lot of things. We've fought like cats and dogs on multiple occasions. But one thing I will never say is that Darren Wagner is stupid, because he is a very, very intelligent man. He's just a little off his rocker on a couple of things. I think that he is completely and utterly wrong when it comes to the flat earth thing. But I will certainly not call him stupid. And you should watch Man Dan's Flat Earth Fridays. I'm not into flat earth, though, so why would I watch that? I mean, honestly. And Mercer, you don't have to. I already read that comment. Please don't put it. Please don't spam it in the comments. I love you, Mercer, but please don't do that. Every explanation about flat Earth has roots in a lack of education, critical thinking, inability to accept the truth. Flat Earth is so stupid. I cannot wrap my head around it. Well, Rand, I get that, Yosef. I do. I know that a lot of people feel that way. My problem with it is that, hey, I really, and I don't know how if. There are people that have speculated, and I am more and more tend to agree with them, that the concept of flat Earth is not really that they believe in a flat Earth as much as they want to see if they can successfully argue for it. Because it's obviously a position that nobody accepts. But I don't think so. I don't think there was ever a flat planet in Trek. There was a hollow planet, but not a flat one. Carlos says, what if we all exist in a different reality but interact with each other? So for us, Earth is round but flat for someone else. The sky is red, but they call it blue. How would we know? I think that's ludicrous, but an interesting idea. The only way that works is if we're in a brain in a jar type theory. We don't really, like if we were all computer programs interacting, something like that. But I don't buy that. Darren is smart, and that's why I said Darren for $500 and pass. Yeah. Sci-Fi Dan is an educational channel, really good one. Oh, is it? Okay. Oh, it's a flat Earth debunking channel. You see, I'm not interested in that either, because honestly, and this is the problem with debates like that, is that most of the videos I've seen that are against the flat Earth theory. And don't get me wrong, I am not in any way, shape, or form defending flat Earth theory. But those people that are against it, those that supposedly debunk flat Earth ideas, they honestly are so insulting and condescending that anybody who is a flat earther is basically offended by it. It's the same way that some atheists argue about religion, where you become so condescending and insulting, and you start calling what their core beliefs as being ridiculous, stupid, that anyone who believes this is an idiot, it's fairy tales, it's whatever. and when you do that, you're not making an argument for your position. You're simply insulting those who you disagree with. And I don't think that that is productive. I don't think that's helpful. And I just think it's wrong. And that doesn't mean I agree with Darren, right? That doesn't mean I'm a flat earther. But if you're going to take and I haven't seen this one channel, so I don't know anything about that particular channel. But if you're, Simon Dan, whatever. But if you're going to argue, if you're going to go through the trouble of making the argument against flat Earth, then do it. Trying to say the right word, but do it with some respect, and do it with some maturity. And that's what we really lack in the whole argument. There's no maturity in the argument. It's just basically people pointing and laughing at the stupid flat earthers, and generally just saying how their ideas are crazy. And, I get that. I understand why some people would feel that way, but it's not a good conversation. You're never going to convince anybody by insulting them. Put it that way. Orville to 2D universe. They did. I remember the 2D thing. That was kind of weird. I'd only want Earth to be a disc if it meant Christopher Lee was death. Okay, that's weird. Darren is against vax too. I haven't actually heard him say he was anti-vax. He and I have argued on the side. By the way, I gotta say, I feel slightly vindicated in that Representative Green apologized for her comments last night. So F you to everybody that was trying to defend her comments, because now she's back down. But I'm not doing another video on it. I just thought that was funny. Anyway, Aberjab says, you may not be far off when you say flat earthers are just trying to see if they can argue the point. Last year, there was a thesis going around to prove that 2 + 2 = 5 for some reason. Yeah, people love a good fight. I think Galactus would eat flat earth like a pizza. I think you're right. And Mercer throws $2 more in. Thank you so much. So sorry for the spam. They're still using dollars. We got to find. They're still using. Sorry for the spam. They're still using dollars. We got to find some. I not sure what you're saying there. As far no problem on the spam thing. I know it's understanding. Like, you put something that you think is important in the comments, and it takes me a couple minutes to get to it. I get that. But I just try to caution people, because if you post it over and over and over, sometimes the algorithm will snatch it and then get you in trouble. So there's that. But nobody is against kissing Dax. Didn't say anybody was. Trusted says, just dropped in for a few minutes, and Nova's looking pretty good. The completed version should be deadly. I hope so. Some flat earth debunking channels are insulting, probably more than I. However, some of them I do think really based on science. Well, they may base their argument on science, but it's how you present it. Are you presenting it like you're an idiot, or are you presenting like here's my counter argument? And for example, what Preston just said, the thing that with flat earthers, they lack the maturity to accept the truth. That's wrong. I'm sorry. With flat earthers, if they believe Proposition X, then show your evidence that Proposition X is false, rather than to attack the motives behind the person who believes Proposition X. See what I'm saying? No one was defending her comments, says Bird. A couple of people actually were mostly trying to say that why her comments were a correct allegory to how conservatives are being treated in the modern world. There were a couple of people that were actually defending her comments. And so you weren't. I'm not saying you were, Bird, but there were some people that were. Mercer says, quoting Star Trek 4. They're still using dollars or money. We got to find some. Gotcha. That makes sense. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. And John says, defending her comments was not the issue. It was an issue of balance. Well, her comments were so, I'm sorry, but they were so crazy. I understand that she doesn't like having to wear a mask to work, but and I don't care, if she's opposed to wearing masks, I understand people will argue about whether or not masks are effective or not. People will argue about how deadly COVID really is. People will argue about the effectiveness of the vaccine and all that. That's all fine and dandy. I don't care. That's not what I'm arguing about. I'm simply arguing that this woman had the balls to get up there and try to compare having to wear a mask to the gas chambers in Germany. Sorry, not sorry. That is Batwoman crazy. And it's not like that's the first Batwoman crazy thing she's said. So, and I'm not going to sit, if I hear something like that, I'm not going to sit back and just go, oh, well, this is, silly politicians. Why don't flat earthers use a stick and measure the shadow worldwide at the same time mass flat earth stream? See if, I don't know who that was right. Because they won't. There is actually only one way to prove, at least with the type of flat earth that Darren Wagner believes in, there is one way to absolutely prove it. But the problem is that they come up with excuses why they can't. And that is, it's very simple. Get in an airplane and fly to the South Pole. Because if they're correct, then when you get to the South Pole, you're not going to simply see more ice and fly over the South Pole and end up on the other side of the planet. No. You are going to see a giant ice wall that reaches up to the heavens that you cannot circumnavigate. Now, easy enough. You fly that airplane, you find that wall, you get your footage of it, you have your proof. The problem is that what they will argue is that you can't get and I don't know the truth of this, but they say you can't get a permit to fly over the South Pole. And basically that is like a no-fly zone. There's no way to get there, and the reason for that is because they're trying to hide the truth. And so that's what they say. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what they say. And let's see. Jerry's out there says, hi, did you hear DC made the Harley Quinn TV show team cut a scene where Batman is going down on Catwoman, said heroes don't do that, but they need to sell toys. I did not hear about that, but yeah, that's just wrong. Wherever you lead the evidence to reach a conclusion you already want. Let's see. Whenever you lead the evidence to reach a conclusion you already want, you have a problem. Well, that's true. And that's a problem that we have with arguments about theology. That's a problem we have with arguments about things like flat earth. And I honestly, like as you guys know, I don't hide the fact that I'm a Christian. And I understand that some people think, oh, that means you're against science. Well, no, I'm not against science. But I also am not against the idea of God. And the problem with a lot of science these days, people that believe in scientism, which is the idea that all things can be explained via the scientific method. But a problem that we're running into there is that they will actually modify a valid scientific theory in order to eliminate the possibility of God. A perfect example is evolution. I don't have a problem with evolution, even though I know a lot of my fellow Christians do. I don't have a problem with evolution one bit, except for the fact that people write into evolution certain terminology that I think is an unwarranted assumption. Namely, the idea that the mutation that we're talking about is random, and sometimes it will say unguided, and therefore no God, right? As opposed to it could be a mutation that was in fact preordained, right? But there's no way to know that. I wouldn't say, oh, we need to say that the mutation is designed by God, nor do I think we should say it's random. We should simply say it's a mutation. And that's the problem with modern science, is that we're not using the scientific method. We just we draw conclusions and insert that in. And so to say something like random or unguided in a theory like evolution is an assumption that is not agnostic. And agnosticism is what the scientific method is all about. You do not assume that there is a God. You do not assume that there is not a God. You simply follow the evidence. There are mutations, and when those mutations are beneficial, they tend to propagate throughout the species. That's absolute fact. To call those mutations random is an assumption that we do not have evidence for. Carlos says main evidence is why, or main question is why. Why do people believe in the flat Earth? Why do people believe that Batman should, do things to Catwoman? Why? What? I mean, oops, as I drop things on the floor. Antarctica's not a no-fly zone. There's no military that will stop you. However, you need to file an environmental impact assessment for any expedition or landing. Well, Mercer, that may be true, but that doesn't stop flat earthers from saying that they can't get a permit to go there. The moon will be a Galactus after Dinnermint, probably true. Antarctica isn't owned by any country, so why would you have to get a permit? Because my understanding is that it's kind of set up as a almost like a preserve, and so you can't just go there. Mercer was just saying, you have to file environmental impact assessments and stuff. And they would say, well, why are you flying over the South Pole? To prove there's a crystal wall there that prevents us from leaving the flat Earth. They're going to say, yeah, sure, whatever. You're not going. I mean, that would probably, I could see that conversation happening. And so I think that could be part of the problem. Anyway, and let's see. Carlos says, why are they hiding the truth, Antaria? We're on a spaceship going somewhere. Well, of course we are. And Donnie's in the house, says, hi, how's everybody doing? Hope you're doing well, Donnie. The permit for the Antarctic Treaty is BS, a fake argument. Problems that none of the flat Earth proponents are willing to pay $50,000 for a cruise to the South Pole. I think that's probably accurate, but I don't know. I've never tried to file a flight to the South Pole. Columbus setting off to find the edge of the world is a myth. I've never heard that one. Columbus was trying to find a shorter route to India, and he thought that he could get to India by sailing west, because we didn't know there was a continent in the way, or was it China? Whatever. He was trying to make a shortcut. That's all he was doing. And let's see. Donnie says, I do believe there's one true God, the Almighty God of the Holy Bible. I do believe heaven and hell exist and are eternal. Well, I tend to, as far as heaven and hell, I think that's a more nuanced discussion as far as, do they exist now? Or will they exist in the future? Because if you read Revelation, it seems like paradise, or heaven as we call it, doesn't exist yet, but it will in the future. But all of that stuff, fine. But the problem is that we also, as Christians, tend to ignore the facts. And one thing that I don't like is, and when I said in my video on the Templar channel, is when people try to use Christianity to push an agenda that the Bible doesn't support. One of those things being flat Earth. And in fact, I've heard flat earthers say that the reason for all these conspiracies and stuff to prevent flat Earth from being known to people is because people would know that God exists if they knew there was a giant ice wall that prevented you from leaving Earth, but yeah, whatever. That doesn't make much sense to me, but hey, whatever starts the coffee. Best opening to a movie, Who Framed Roger Rabbit? Funny cartoon, well augmented, but seeing Roger Rabbit and Baby Herman walk off the set was brilliant. That was a great opening. I don't know if I'd say the best opening to a movie, but I thought that was a great opening. I'd have to say, honestly, probably the best opening to a movie, period, would be the original Star Wars. It was not called Episode 4. I don't give a crap what people want to say. But the original Star Wars, where we see the Rebel ship and the Imperial Star Destroyer over Tatooine. That shot showed you more information. It showed you how powerful the Empire was, that the rebels were struggling just to survive, that, there's this huge mismatch of firepower and stuff. It gave you a lot of good information. Dear Antrick, what film or show had your favorite depiction of David or Goliath? Ooh, what was the name of that show? There was a TV show. It didn't last long, but it was really good. And oh man, it was like it told the story of David and Goliath and Saul as a series set in modern day. So Goliath was actually a new tank that the enemy had that was like the biggest tank ever. David and Saul were these political guys, and they kind of, it was really interesting. It was a really interesting take, and now I can't remember what it was called, but it was actually a fun show. It only lasted one season. Which, I mean, that didn't surprise me because, I mean, it was based on theology and nobody, in this world wants that kind of stuff. Bird says, please watch Lucifer season 5 so it can be discussed on Church Life. Give me a Netflix password and I'll watch it. Let's see. Are there any she-males on Lucifer? No, the she-males are all in Kuroga. And Aberjam says, folk often conflict heaven and hell with Hades and paradise, but they're not the same thing. Well, if you look at, I mean, heaven is generally when people say heaven, they generally are talking about where we end up if you're a good person. And hell, they think of where we end up if you're a bad person, right? Or you're not a believer, or however you want to set up how judgment works or argue about that. Problem there is that there's a lot of misunderstanding among the lay people out there. So they think that paradise and heaven are the same thing. Paradise is where we're going. Heaven is where God lives, right? The two different things. Heaven is like an extra three-dimensional realm that we have no conception of and, couldn't understand. It's something beyond the three spatial dimensions that we see. Something beyond time, something beyond our concept of existence. But paradise is going to be very much like the world today, just not in a fallen state. So that'll be nice. And so things that we struggle through today will not be issues there. Anyway. The battle at the end of season 5 was sorely lacking. Well, I haven't seen it. I honestly, Lucifer, I'm trying to remember when Trisha Heffler came in to play Lilith, I think it was. I was like, they kind of lost me. Now I get it. There's a little bit of mythology to support the idea of Lilith. Lilith is actually going to be the big bad in Diablo 4, which I'm kind of looking forward to seeing what they do with her. But I don't think Trisha was a good pick for her. I think they just got her. They just like they got her somehow, and they were like, okay, what are we going to do with this? And that's what they ended up doing. Let's see. Sorry, a little bit of gas there. Trusted says, there's a great YouTube science channel called Isaac Arthur. He did a video of why what would be involved in building a flat earth and why the conditions would be on the surface. I've seen a couple of Isaac Arthur's videos. I generally, honestly, I don't get into, like, the problem is that I think that when some of these arguments about it, it always ends up, I don't care. I think that flat Earth not being true is kind of just intuitive. If you look at the evidence, I think it's pretty obvious that we live on a globe. But and so I'm not interested in that argument. I mean, that's like, just like I'm not interested in an argument about fairies existing or something like that either. I just don't really care. That's why I find atheists so interesting, because I'm not obsessed with fighting over things I don't believe in. I'd rather defend the things I do believe in. Lilith is not biblical. Yeah, Lilith was a part of Jewish mythology, but she is not in the canonized Bible, nor the Torah or Tanakh or any of that. So you're right. She is purely mythological. And yeah, Lilith was supposedly Adam's first wife. But in the Bible, the first woman was Eve, and so I understand the and then Lilith went bad or something, and I don't know the details of it because I think it's kind of silly. But there's a lot of extra biblical stuff out there that some people with there's some fan we'll just call it fan fiction. There's some serious fan fiction out there, and some of it is quite interesting. Let's see. What's the best way to send you a direct message you would actually read? Well, yeah, good question, Joseph. That is a very good question. I will tell you, if you have my, and I've told people this, the best way is send it any way you can, and then when I'm doing a live stream, let me know you sent the message, because I'm honestly having a difficult time keeping up with anything. I can barely keep track of the messages I'm doing with my doctors. But if you every time, with a couple of exceptions, but most of the time, I'll say if somebody sends me a Twitter message or a Skype message or whatever, and if you have my Skype, I almost always have Skype up on this computer, and so if you send me a Skype message, I will eventually get to it. I don't remember if you have my Skype, Joseph, but. I generally will only accept a friend request on Skype if I know who you are. If I don't, and no offense to those of you that watch the channel, but if I don't know you, I'm not going to approve you as a Skype friend, because I don't want to just start getting random messages on Skype. And if I say something that might offend the fandom menace, I don't want to suddenly get 7,000 Skype messages that are death threats and crap like that, like I get on Twitter. Not interested in turning Skype into another freaking, toxic environment. But honestly, Joseph, if you got something you want to let me know, send me a message however you can, and then let me know in the live stream that you sent me a message, and I will read it. Anyway, it's really something. The Roger Rabbit movie had no CGI and as being drawn by hand really was a tribute to classic animation. Did it have no CGI? I don't know. I never looked behind the scenes on it. Let's see. Alex says, what's your favorite end times film? That's a tough one. Because, the problem is that there's never been, and let me preface this with this, because I know there are some fellow Christians in the chat, and I want to make this 100% clear. I've yet to see a good end times movie that I felt was also biblically accurate. All right, so put that out there, number one. So I'm not saying that any of these films are in any way, shape, or form theologically correct, but I think as an entertaining film, they work. And I would say as far as strictly as an end times type of thing, I would go with the movie Knowing, starring Nicolas Cage. If you have not seen Knowing, it is a really interesting idea. That someone basically got a prophetic type vision and knew when the end was coming. And even though, of course, that's directly contradictory to what the Bible says, but because in the Bible it says no one will know. And I think that's the whole premise of the film. What if somebody knew? And so they put down all these names and dates in a time capsule that is actually a prophecy about when the end comes. And so the main character, Nicolas Cage, goes through this little adventure to try and prevent the world from ending. And then by the end of it, though, yeah, the world ends. So you can't, there ain't no escaping the end. So I thought it was actually an interesting film. Then they had this weird thing with the kids basically going to a paradise type planet, which was kind of weird, but hey, it's Nicolas Cage. You can't have a Nicolas Cage film without a little bit of weirdness. But I did enjoy that one as an end times film. And see, somebody sent me something. Let's see. Thomas says Skype is the best way to get hold of. Well, I would say Skype is, but only if you have my Skype, and I'm not going to just give it to. I'm not going to say my Skype name on a live stream. I will, because Yosef, I don't know if you have my Skype. I would have no problem talking to you on Skype. But I don't want to give people that kind of access to me in general, because, man, when I did that, I learned my lesson. When I did that Captain Marvel review and I started getting death threats on Twitter, I was like, whoa, So, I mean, literally, that was just stupid. Now, granted, I didn't take them seriously. I wasn't like running and crying, and, I hardly ever mentioned it. But at the same time, I didn't want, I'm like, man, what is wrong with people? That was my thought. What the heck is going on with idiots out there that want to sit there and try to make me feel like I'm in mortal danger just because I didn't say this film sucked as bad as they think I should have. That makes no effing sense to me. Anyway. The only thing that offends me is SJW nonsense. I don't even get offended. Generally speaking, I don't get offended by even that, even though I think it's wrong. When I get offended is when I see, like, what really offends me is when I see something that I feel like, wow, that person shouldn't be saying that considering who they are, right? So, like, I get offended when Representative Green said the whole thing about the Holocaust, because and I said this in my follow-up video, but I think a lot of people didn't understand it. I didn't, AOC saying something crazy, Nancy Pelosi saying something crazy, that just means it's Tuesday, right? But if I believe in general, like not 100%, but if I believe that the conservatives have better ideals than the liberals, then I want them to be successful. And when they say something like that, it hurts them. It's the same reason I have a problem with flat Earth. Look, I will argue that flat Earth is dangerous and bad and all that, but I'm not going to say the people that believe in it are bad people just because they believe in it. But I think that flat Earth is a big problem because it hurts Christianity. It just adds one more plank to people that want to say Christians are anti-science and that kind of thing. So that's where I get offended. But as far as just crazy people being crazy, I'm not offended by that. I just kind of expect it. Alex says Jessica Rabbit was a big help during puberty. Mako's favorite end times movie was 2012. The problem with 2012 was it wasn't an end times movie. It was and that's the problem with most end times movies, is that they narrowly avoid the end times, and then it's not the end times. Alice says there's an animated adult sitcom called God, the Devil, and Bob. I recommend it. I love God, the Devil, and Bob. Watch it every week. That was a fun show. But unfortunately it didn't last, like most things that deal with religion. The problem with religion is that the only way Hollywood can do it that people will watch is when they mock it and they make it and they make all religion seem crazy and bad. Bird says, I guarantee Kuroga did not send most of the Captain Marvel threats to Anti-Trigger. Notice he said most, because he sent some. There was definitely a couple of Kurogans there. But Bird, I don't worry. Your crimes against humanity are so numerous that the fact that some of your people sent me death threats for Captain Marvel is kind of incidental. I'm not worried about it. Let's see if we can... Man, this window is going to be a pain. Get it? A pain? Oh, jeez. Robert says, in the Dragon Ball universe, during the main BUU saga, he wiped out all life on Earth and later blew up the Earth. I never got into Dragon Ball, so I don't know anything about it. And then Random says, check your Twitter after the stream. I will, my friend. Thank you. And Joseph, I hope the future is well over there. You're just such a great guy. And, I told you if I wish you were in the United States so I could buy a computer from you. And I mean that because I get the feeling that you wouldn't screw me over, which is like something that you never get the feeling of with business anymore. I mean, even the company I work for, I get so frustrated with. Yeah, it seems like they just want to screw people over. Um, I want to see Galactus the Unicron use our solar system's finest as bowling balls. That's okay. Tom says Hollywood only insults one religion. It's wrong to insult the others. Well, sometimes you're right, Thomas. I mean, obviously Hollywood picks on Christianity more than any other faith. However, let's not pretend that Hollywood didn't go through its Muslim bomber phase. All right, so it's not like they never do that stuff. All right, and you know they now I will say this: they almost never make fun of Buddhists. But as far as and Hindus, they like if you look at Hindus, they were just kind of stereotypes, like Apu, who I didn't have a problem with Apu from The Simpsons, but that was how they basically treated most Hindus in Hollywood. So it's Hollywood just doesn't know how to deal with religion. They don't. That's the only thing they're worse at than writing for women is writing for religious characters. And Alex has an interesting theory that Adam and Eve were early hominids. Well, I'll tell you, as far as my take on it, I think Adam and Eve were two literal people. But I think that also outside of the garden, what we call evolution happened. And so I think that they were two specially created people, but I also believe that evolution, as we see it in the fossil record, absolutely did happen. And I'll probably get into that on a church live stream sometime. Most companies either want to screw you, screw the customer, or screw both. Yeah, it's sad. Unfortunately, the modern world is just crap. What do you think they will do with the new Battlestar Galactica reboot? I don't know, Mercer. I can't imagine anything good. Because it depends. If they're true to the source material, it could be awesome. But I would be very surprised if they do that. I mean, Ronald D. Moore had lightning in a bottle. I don't know that they're going to be able to duplicate that. And even Ronald D. Moore's vision had its minor problems. Man, so close. There we go. And it's like right on the... see, just right there. And I think we're going to have to split this into two windows. It's the only way it's going to work. Because I'm spending way too much time trying to get this dual pane to work. Robert says, Majin Buu did all of that just for kicks because he's just playing evil like the Joker, no rhyme or reason, just because. Well, honestly, I think that a villain who is just evil to be evil can be fun, but I think that it kind of gets boring after a while. I think the reason the Joker works is not because the Joker is just evil to be evil, because that's not how the Joker is. In reality, the Joker is simply, he is insane. He's completely and utterly crazy, but he's also obsessed with Batman. He doesn't want to just commit crimes to commit crimes, and he doesn't want to commit crimes to gain money or power. He likes doing it because it annoys Batman. So, the Joker loves to just mess with people, and so I love that. And Preston says, "You mean Holly woke?" Well, I think woke, let me tell you, as long as we're talking here, I'm going to go on a little tirade here, so rant alert for those of you that get a little worked up about this. I am sick and tired of the word woke. I am absolutely sick and tired of the word woke, because woke does not mean that you put a strong female in a movie. Woke does not mean that you gender swap somebody. I don't know where the heck all this crap with woke came from, mostly from the Phantom Menace, but woke was a positive thing, primarily in the African American community, about being aware of what's going on in the world. That's all woke means. It doesn't mean that you screw everything up. It means, when you see a crime that is racially motivated, you recognize that. All right? Or when you see something like what happened to Haywood Floyd, or it was Haywood Floyd, Mr. Floyd, I'll just call him Mr. Floyd, that was wrong. And you need to stand up and say that was wrong. That's what woke means. Woke is not about feminism. And I don't know what, and it's funny because I can't remember the guy's name, the guy that was, man, he was in The Mandalorian for a couple episodes, the former trooper who helped them infiltrate the one place. But anyway, he did this whole thing on Saturday Night Live, and he was 100% correct. He was like, when the hell did woke become about white women? Why? All right. And then people like the Phantom Menace make it even worse because now they say, and I apologize, Preston, this is not about you. I just want you to know I'm not attacking you at all, but just the fact that you said that triggered me a little bit. The fact that now we have the Phantom Menace, that they see a strong woman or they see a person of color and they say, oh, it's all woke now. That's, it is driven, like when you look at things like what happened with The Last Jedi, it's absolutely driven by an agenda, and that's absolutely wrong. But stop using thank you, Bill Burr. Love the guy. But it absolutely does not mean everything is woke. It just means that they're trying, the virtue signaling, I have no problem with that term. But please, for the love of God, stop using the term woke for things that aren't woke. All right. End of tirade. Anyway, let's see. Random Man says, get your computer fixed and wait 1 year. The current situation is horrible for buying a new PC. Component shortage, drive prices sky high. Not even the dome can stop. Oh, yeah, I know. I'm so glad. I mean, I was looking because I was thinking, I'm so glad I have that extended warranty. Granted, it's only good for about another year, but hey, I have it. And so I'm really glad I do because I'm looking like that computer cost me like $2,100. The equivalent to today would cost probably about $3,800. And, that's just crazy. And so Dreamer's out there says, you're not wrong. Anytime a woman of authority shows up, they call it woke. Phantom Menace didn't like Owen Wilson sucking up to the judge. Yeah, and the thing about that was, first of all, he didn't suck up to the judge. He walked up and said, hey, I want to do this. And she said, look, if this goes sideways, it's on you. That was their entire conversation. He didn't beg her to let him do it. He just walked up and basically said, I'm taking him. These people that go overreact to all this crap need to shut the heck up and watch the show before you criticize it. Like, what was his name? Babyface thought that when he, when Loki transported himself to Mongolia, he thought he went to another planet. Why? Because he wasn't paying attention to the show. Not saying Babyface is an idiot. He just wasn't paying attention because he didn't care. Anyway, these guys at the Phantom Menace, they're intelligent people. They make entertaining videos, but I'm done with it because I can't watch the same. I'm so tired of hearing about Kathleen Kennedy about to be fired. I'm so tired of hearing, George Lucas is going to take over Lucasfilm. Oh, and of course, then you flip over to the next channel and everything is doom and gloom. There's chaos here. This is a failure. Everything sucks. This thing that isn't coming out for 2 years, it's going to suck. Everything just sucks. Why can't we talk about what we love? That's why, like right now, you know what I'm talking about today, besides now this tirade about this, but we're talking about a freaking Nova class Starship and how awesome it is. I'm not going to sit here and deal with the fact that Discovery looks like a pizza cutter all day. I'm not going to do stream after stream after stream complaining about Michael Burnham. Why can't we have freaking fun anymore? Why is that such a crime in the minds of many in the Phantom Menace? They don't want to whine and bitch about everything. Well, I'm not gonna. So, yeah. Anti-Drecker gone woke. Thanks, Thomas. Well, actually, in a sense, I would say, yes, I am woke. Because you know what? Because this is what woke means. I look at the Phantom Menace and I see what it's becoming and I point it out. That's woke. So you want to call me woke? Go right a freaking head. Using the proper use of the term, you're 100% right. I think you're trying to close the woke barn door after the horse is bolted. You're right. That's the problem. They just don't understand it, and now people think woke means something that doesn't. Mongolia is on this planet? Yes, indeed. Kathleen Kennedy is about to be fired any day now. Yes. Bird says women are naturally suited to be teachers and nurses. That is just science. Why are you saying that, Bird? I heard one person say Owen Wilson lost his man card for the judge seat. That makes no sense. He didn't do any. Yeah. And we're off again, mate. I'm giving you 5 more minutes to get off your chest, and then I'm leaving. Average Am, it's not my fault. I didn't bring it up. I swear I didn't. Okay? I thought Kennedy was shot, not fired. Yeah. To be honest, I'm looking forward to more Star Trek fun in August and beyond on Paramount Plus. I really am hopeful that Strange New Worlds is great. I do hope it is. If it's not, yes, I'll bitch and moan about it a little bit, but once I'm done bitching and moaning about it, I will move on and I will, I'll just say, well, I guess I'm done with Star Trek. That'll be it. Nova Class Bridge is my favorite layout. I like the Nova Bridge. The whole ship is just great to me. And let's see. Did you hear Anaconda is going to be rebooted? I want it to be like the Meg. I did not hear that, but hey, why not? And Preston says, tell the truth, I'm sick of that woke stuff too, so I hear you. I didn't mean to get you riled, just trying to make a joke. No, Preston, it's totally cool, and I'm not mad at you. I just wanted to make sure, I just wanted to get that off my chest about the whole woke thing, because it is so annoying. It's a pet peeve of mine at this point. It's kind of like when people say, I could care less, when you should say I couldn't care less. Stop saying woke when it doesn't mean, when you don't know what woke means. Yeah. You gonna light all the windows or keep few off? I'm planning on lighting them all to see how it looks, because my idea here is that this Starship is in its prime. This is not the Starship after being pummeled by the trans-dimensional aliens for months. That's my plan. And don't forget, please put at Anti-Trekker if you want me to read it, because there's a few that I'm sure I missed because it didn't have my name in it. Just speak your mind, Anti-Trekker. That's why we're here. I appreciate that, Mako. And you know what? I hope, I know that those of you that have followed me for years, and I truly appreciate it. But those of you that have been here for a long time know that, look, if you don't want to ever be offended, do not subscribe to my channel. Because sooner or later, I will offend you. I absolutely guarantee you that. Because I do not censor myself, because I think this is what my subscribers want me to say. As much as, I understand I would be a much bigger channel if I did that. But I'm not going to censor myself for that, because I want to be me no matter what. And I know that some people get upset when I talk about politics or when I talk about religion on the channel. And that's part of the reason me and Mrs. Antrick are going to create our own side channel and talk about that kind of stuff. And from an interracial perspective, because honestly, I do think that sometimes some of the arguments I get in is because I do come from a very different perspective than quote unquote most white people, because I've seen I've seen the other side of it, to say that way. I've seen it up close. I've seen the ugliness of what our society throws at certain segments of the population. And so because of that, I understand the woke movement better than a lot of people, because I see why it's necessary. The problem is that they say people try to cite statistics that are inherently biased, and there's no way to make them work. And that's something we'll get into on that channel. Average says, what's your favorite hot drink? Coffee with some Irish cream. Mercer says, I'll be sending you an anti-care package soon, but I may need to order a few more copies of my book, which will delay your package. That's okay, Mercer. All I ask is that when you do send it, let me know so that I'll check the post office, because I don't go there often because of my physical condition. So do let me know. And if you get a tracking number, send me that. Robert says, I have to say I don't like the new design for Tila on the new He-Man series. I don't know. I saw the trailer for the He-Man series, and I honestly, if I had Netflix, I would watch it. I think overall it looks good. The real dramatic change I saw in the character was Prince Adam, and I think that was a good thing that Prince Adam because before it's like, you have this huge buff guy holds up a sword, and the only thing that happens is his clothes change, right? This should be more like Shazam. I keep wanting to say Captain Marvel because that's who he really is. But it's like Shazam. He should be transformed, not just put on an S&M outfit. He should absolutely be a different person, and so I do like that. Robert says also Mark Hamill's voicing. Oh, is that Mark Hamill doing Skeletor? I did not catch that. I honestly didn't love the new Skeletor voice. But because I'm so used to, hey, He-Man, that's Skeletor to me. And so a toned down Skeletor just didn't make sense to me. But hey, it is what it is. For the record, might you never, I'm not sure why he said that. Pissed me off. I only get annoyed when you think you're doing something that is below. When I think you're doing something that's below you, because I know 9 times out of 10 you're better than that. Well, I appreciate that, Average Ham, and I know I will annoy you from time to time, but I do consider you a good friend. Sistra says, I do my best not to let the vocal community dictate my habits. When I agree, both the newer Star Trek and Star Wars are not as good as what they have in the past, I will still watch it. I will tell you, I struggle with Star Trek. Star Wars, honestly, I don't think is as bad as many people think. Now, granted, yes, the Last Jedi was horrifically bad. However, I don't think that The Force Awakens was that bad, and I don't think that Rise of Skywalker was that bad. They both had their problems. I'm not saying they were perfect films. I'm not saying that either one was as good as, the original Star Wars. It's not called A New Hope. It's just called Star Wars. I'm not suggesting that they're that good, but I think that people that just want to hate on them are wrong, because yes, The Last Jedi was an absolute abomination. But the rest of new Star Wars, at worst, you have some stuff that you're like, like Solo. Solo was generic and, kind of to kind of cite what Average would say, it was beneath the Star Wars brand to be that generic. But it wasn't bad, right? I think that Rogue One was unnecessary. They took one sentence from the original Star Wars opening crawl and turned it into a movie. It wasn't necessary, but it wasn't bad, right? Force Awakens, man, if that had a lot of potential. I mean, it set up something that could have been interesting, and then Last Jedi just decided to, do horrible things to it and not even give a reach around or lube. And so it was horrible what the Last Jedi did. And then obviously Rise of Skywalker was pure damage control. However, then we get The Mandalorian. The Mandalorian's actually good. And the funny thing is we got an awesome Luke Skywalker scene that we were begging for with Rise of Skywalker or The Last Jedi. Or not, Last Jedi. We finally got the Luke Skywalker we wanted, even if it was only for a couple of minutes. Average says, shut the front door. Coffee and Bailey's my favorite hot drink, too. Oh, yeah. Can't beat that. I'm glad to know that you consider me a friend. I'll always be honored to be your caregiver. Thanks. Robert says, a smaller Prince Adam, though, has been done already in the early 2000s He-Man reboot series. I like Skeletor also. I didn't see the early 2000s one. I only saw the original one. And, you know, I'm not a big He-Man fan, but I watched the original cartoon. Tom says, did you watch Deej's video? Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I actually thought that you're talking about Deej's video about episode 1 of Loki. I thought it was pretty solid. I can't wait for the nacelle slide up. That was always the best part of Star Trek. That's going to be a challenge, too. I'm still thinking about how am I going to do that. The Force Awakens was a disappointment more than be bad because the original trilogy and The Force Awakens was a disappointment more than be bad because it was the original. Because with the original trilogy and Clone Wars, you have a lot of potential to move forward, but they didn't do that. Well, I think the problem with and I know that like a lot of people that defended The Force Awakens, and I'm one of them, would say that The Force Awakens was the first Star Wars film in a very long time, and they needed to kind of just reestablish Star Wars. I didn't have a problem with Force Awakens feeling a lot like the original Star Wars as far as the plot and everything like that. That didn't bother me in the slightest. What bothered me was that Rey won the fight at the end. If everything else was exactly the same, but Rey got her, instead of Rey basically was about to kill Kylo Ren when the fissure opened up and saved Kylo's butt, it should have been the other way around. Kylo should have absolutely curb stomped Rey, and then the fissure opens up and she is saved by that. However, and this is why I think I know I'm trying to get into the head of J.J. Abrams a little bit, but I think this is what he was thinking. Is that if Rey and Kylo were going to end up reversing positions by the end of the trilogy. If Rey, like when we got that glimpse of Dark Rey, I think that JJ threw that in because that's what he wanted to do. He wanted to make Rey into the villain of the trilogy. And so you make it so that she is an insanely powerful Force user, beats a trained Jedi with her first time holding a lightsaber. But then we find out she's the villain and he's the hero at the end. Holy crap. And so that would have made something awesome. Unfortunately, they couldn't do it. Tom says, did you set up Streamlabs? Not entirely. Did you? I can see it if I bring it up. Oh, yeah. Thank you, Thomas. I see that Joe Biden donated $1 and says, hello, Matthew. So you said your pub is Monday at 9 a.m. He did say that. I'm not usually awake then. Nice U.S. Navy ship you're building. I'll show it to the president of China. Hail Kuroga. Have a good weekend. Number 22. Thank you, Joe Biden. I can't play number 22 for you, but thank you, President Biden. But yeah, I do see it if I bring it up, but it doesn't. I got to get the audio alerts back on. Let's see. There's the Deej video. Thank you, Thomas. Speaking of Soups, I'm looking forward to this evening's Soups and Low on the CW. I haven't watched it. Honestly, I don't care for this. I know that I've heard that it's good for a CW show, but I still just don't like the CW flavor. The only thing I can give Last Jedi, I like the Supremacy class Star Destroyer design. Most of the other ships did not hold up. I thought the Supremacy was a cool idea as well. But that's about. I mean, the Last Jedi was a visually stunning movie, but then when you start looking at the story, that's where it falls apart. Gotta go FaceTime with the missus. Just leave you with this. Aberjam is awesome. Aberjam is great. He's part of the team. Aberjam is awesome. This guy's such a dream. Yeah. And Deej, hey Deej, was you still doing that stream tomorrow? Yes. So Deej and we were talking about doing some kind of joint stream on Wednesdays. So we don't know exactly what we're going to do yet, but yes, Deej and I will be streaming tomorrow night, 8 Central. I don't know. We don't really. We'll have to talk about obviously Loki episode 2 and just whatever's going on in the world, in the nerddom world. Robert says I'd like a good Hancock sequel. Honestly, You know, Hancock, I was torn on. It had its moments, but I honestly, I thought it was kind of meh overall. All right, so I'm going to wrap it up there because I need to have lunch. That's what the alarm is for. And then after lunch, maybe I'll do a gaming stream over on Twitch if I have some energy. But we'll keep working on this ship in the meantime. And you guys, thank you for putting up with me. I really do appreciate each and every one of you. Yeah, I guess Jolan true and blah blah. I don't have an ending because I'm an idiot. So go watch Bird or Deej or whoever's streaming